Quorum present. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee to order at 6:31 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Co-op Budget Committee for the month of January. The agenda was posted in advance of the meeting as required. I would like to introduce myself, Darlene Mann, and the members of the committee present this evening, who include Tom Solon, Tom Enright, Brian Rader, Raul Blanchet, Matt McGuire, and Tom Whalen. I'd also like to welcome our BA Kelly Seeley, our Director of Student Services Lauren DeGennaro, and Krista Whalen, our additional school board member who sits on the co-op school board. So with that, if you would all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I would like to start off with a quick little agenda adjustment. I'd like to change the CBA overview to a warrant overview. I shared the draft warrant with everyone before the meeting. And by changing to that overall category, we can then work our way through questions on the bond articles and in the order of the meeting. So Lauren is here to talk about, to give a special education overview that will include in the operating budget overview. And Chris is here to, and Lauren as well, to speak to the CBA language for the Hessa agreement. With that in mind, since we'll be talking about the budget, I'd like to move the public hearing metrics up and switch that with the school board update and add something, one quick thing about the special meeting on apportionment, which is scheduled for next week. So our agenda tonight will look like a financial update, a warrant article overview, metrics for the public hearing, a school board update, and then a brief discussion on the special meeting next week.
The only question I have is if that change affects the amount of time that our visitors have to be here, can the warrant discussion be structured to have their participation
Sure,
first,
we can take the articles out of order and do that so that we can get everybody on their way.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh,
We're fine now.
I know, we really are fine. You could, whatever you prefer.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Thank you.
We'll be fine. Thank you.
With that, let me check. We're in January. Tom Whalen, you are our process observer this evening, and I'll take a motion to approve our minutes of December 19th.
So moved.
From Tom, seconded by Raul. Any questions, issues, clarifications?
Do you want me to abstain because I wasn't there, or do you care if I
If you've
vote?
read the minutes and you know, have reviewed them and don't see an issue, there isn't a reason that you have to abstain because you weren't present, so. With that, all those in favor of the December 19th minutes?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Abstained. Okay. Move on to public input. Seeing no one present, we will move straight through to the financial update. So I did share with everybody the financial overview. I believe this was shared at the last, the January school board meeting. But Kelly, if you don't mind just taking us through that, and then we can get to the issues and you know, the conversation about budget-related items.
Sure. I'll just jump to the really exciting part, which is the projected fund balance. And, you know, it's early in the year. It's only January 7th was when this was created. So right now we're showing a fund balance of $271,691, and that includes all of the things, the placeholder pieces that we use for FY26, like the maintenance trust, retained fund balance, and the contingency fund. So we're actually in good shape. And as far as the most notable underruns we have going right now would be in special ed. We are seeing $158,000 available balance, and that's due primarily to savings in out-of-district services, hiring, vacancies, the usual suspects. And the other notable one would be facilities, and I don't know if you remember or not, but the school board last year, at the end of the year, decided to purchase several things that were in the FY25 budget because we had available funds. So they purchased some of those, and that's why that's showing as a larger than expected overrun. So that's really a small synopsis of the where we are right now. Any questions?
No, I think we're okay. All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So moving on to the, where's my warrant? Oh, there we are. So moving on to the warrant overview, I shared with everyone, the warrant as it's written to date. We have, I would say, 7 school board and budget committee related articles, 5 petition warrant articles, and then the last article, which is to transact any other business which would legally come before the meeting, which puts us at 13. So, if you don't mind, if we can just, if Lauren and Krista, you're okay with us moving through, we would be through the, Hessa discussion by Article 4. It's kind of.
You want me to start now?
No, if we're all good, just proceeding with it,
Yeah, just
the
go.
warrant is written?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Article 1 is the HBMS project for the boilers, control systems, LED lighting, and, rooftop HVAC units. And as written right now, this was kind of we kind of had a placeholder in the budget trend file. And the anticipation of the board in looking through all of the facilities projects that were going to be put together and placed on the warrant was come as close as possible to the amount of the payment for the bond that is retiring. So we've had a placeholder in the budget trend file, and right now the board has put forward an annual payment of $440,929 based on a 20-year lease. So the overall project cost is just shy of $5.3 million. I, late in the day, and I apologize for this, shared the presentations that were made to the board in December. I had linked the school board meeting to everyone, and in listening to the meeting, Superintendent Corey referenced that the packets were online, and I quickly kind of got them out to everyone. So the details of those are online, and I think for this project, the package very much is I think the one that Tom walked us through. I think that was in November. So nothing has changed as a result of that meeting. The amounts have stayed the same, and as I said, it includes what this essentially does is include the mandatory changes that we have right now double counted in the operating budget, and adds on some additional expenses to address the additional components that I mentioned, the LED, some of the control systems, and the HVAC, and to improve all of that as a composite project. So this one is placed first, and if it passes at the meeting, we would immediately, as we move to the operating budget, the board would make an amendment to the operating budget to take out the $915,000 that's currently included. So that's the reason for the structure of the warrant, to start with this and then proceed immediately to the operating budget.
Just a point of clarification, I think
Sure.
the question was asked that at the meeting, school board meeting, there was a statement that all bond articles have to be first. Do you remember that? There was that comment? And there was a question of whether I shouldn't say bond at least, whether the other one's gonna have to get moved before this as well.
Yep,
No.
so yes, if we have to.
It is fine, exactly how
It
it
is?
is. This is recommended
got the
by the
answer?
attorney because a lease is not a bond, so it doesn't have to go by the same rules. Now, if we were to change those two to bonds, yes, we would have to move Article 3
Before
to
Article 2.
Article 2. It becomes Article 2.
Okay.
That is a possibility.
That is a
That would
possibility.
move to bond because of the rates.
So as of right now, the district is still considering the financing mechanism, and the board are still considering the financing mechanism, and
Yes.
we'll have a decision shortly,
I believe
I
so.
anticipate. Okay.
I don't know that you'll have it before the next board
We
meeting.
can make that decision at the public hearing.
So the school board accepted the recommendations of the committee that looked into and the specific
Yes.
recommendation.
Okay, so the final financing decision will be made at the public hearing
Well,
special meeting.
That is an option. I threw that out today, but
Mhm.
I haven't heard anything from Andy or Jeannie.
Okay, so, all right, I would just wonder about, if it were decided later, I think we would have to have a separate bond hearing, even though
We
we
do have to have
noticed
it,
it as
yes.
because right now it's written as a lease. If it were to
Yes.
change to a bond, we would need another public hearing on it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, could I just ask, have you decided who's gonna make the presentation? In my opinion, I hope it's a school board member.
Which are you talking about?
I'm sorry, the one we're just talking about.
What are you talking about at the hearing or at the meeting?
Well, both.
In all likelihood, it looks as though it'll be Rob Mann and me.
Excellent. Very happy.
Okay, okay, so the next article in the order that we have right now is the operating budget. So that article is $31,160,427.
That's without the adjustment.
That is without the adjustment. So that includes $915,000 for the for a portion of the middle school project, and that's the adjustment that would be made if the first article were to pass
Right.
in whatever capacity. I don't think that number has not changed from last month. As of right now, with the $915,000, it's a 6.34% increase from the prior year. If assuming passage of the other article, and the removal of the $915,000, the operating budget increase would decrease to a 3.05% increase, and the number would drop to $30,245,427. So that's where we stand right now. As I said, nothing has really shifted over time. It contains, based on the new items spreadsheet, I think some things Lauren will talk about a little bit for special education, and I think the round 4.1 list is the same as the round 4 list, and nothing's been changed or added. So Lauren, if you don't mind at this time, thank you so
Sure.
much for joining us this evening. As we mentioned a little bit before the meeting, you know, every other year, we would love to have you here to just talk about special education programming, what's happening with student services, and especially as it affects, you know, this budget. I think there are some programmatic changes that we'd already previously discussed, and so I'll leave it to you to take us through that.
Sure. So I'm going to give an overview just of some, things that are happening in the world of special education and student services, and then if you have any questions, you could either stop me or at the end, whatever works. So we always strive as a district to keep our students in district. So we build the programs and the services that will best meet what their needs are, and as students' needs evolve, we work to build the programs that will best service them. So so I believe the change that Darlene is referring to is we currently have a program that's called the NEC program. It's run by the New England Center for Children, and they partner with public schools to bring their services into the school district. So we've partnered with them for, I'd say, maybe about 6 years now, because they were at the middle school and moved up to the high school. As students' needs are evolving and things are shifting, we actually want to end that partnership with NEC, and we're going to be using our own in-house staff. And what that's going to do is we're going to have our program, which will be a life skills model. But one of the positions is a BCBA, which is a board certified behavior analyst. And that BCBA will work from 7 through 12. Where right now in the NEC program, the BCBA through their program only works with the students that are in that program in the high school. So for us, this will be a benefit because right now we don't have a set BCBA in our middle school. So this will help to offer more support to more students as we go through.
Can you explain what a BCBA is?
Yep, so a board certified behavior analyst will work with students who have different developmental and behavioral needs. So we look at behavior plans, functional behavior analysis for students. I don't want to go too far into the weeds but I can answer specific questions. But they'll work with different students with with disabilities throughout the district. And they actually also have the skill set to support even minor classroom management pieces. They can give kind of strategies for classroom teachers too, and work on that tier 1 and tier 2 level for student supports, even if they're not special education. Does that make sense? So this actually is a cost savings to us. The program that what we're paying right now for NEC is actually more than what we would pay likely for the staff that we hire, which is a special education teacher and a BCBA. And the BCBA, like I said, will be working with all students, not just the students in one program. Okay. I just wanted to kind of go through an overview of special education student services and some different changes that you may or may not be aware of. So when we talk about building programs in district, this is for the best interest of the student as students, to be with their peers in their community, in their home school. In addition, it is a financial piece as well, because out of district placements are growing in due to inflation. The costs, we're looking at the transportation costs and the out-of-district placement costs, and we're obviously saving a lot more by being able to program for students in-house. Some other changes are, as students go to charter schools, if a student receives special education services and they go to a charter school, we're responsible for special education services within the charter school. That's just something that I wasn't sure if this committee is aware of. There's also been some changes or impacts of special education aid. Special education aid used to be called catastrophic aid back in the day. It's changed to special education aid. So what that means is the state sets a cap. So right now it's roughly $70,000. If we spend over $70,000 on a student for their programming, we get 80% of anything over that back. If it's up to 3.5 times, if it's up to 10 times, we get 100% back. It's a percent of a percent. I can go more into that. But what's happening is right now the state is only able to pay back about $33 million in special education aid based off of our 2024 special education aid. But across the state, the schools have, I think, billed about $50 million. So there's a shortfall this year. And we do the best we can, like I said, to offset our costs as much as possible, but this will be looking at next year and impact,
So it is
and definitely
paid-
moving forward.
And that funding is paid in arrears, so.
Correct, so it's a year behind,
Right, so any funding we received this year is for
Last year, right, 2023. And the amount that we're getting back this year is actually a little more than what I gave Kelly as an estimate. I try to be conservative when I say how much we'll get back in revenue, because again, we're predicting, into the future.
How much of a difference?
So this year we're getting back, I think 375,000, and so that the state was able to return about, I think it was 87% for this number. So we're only going to get 67% of what we billed for special ed aid back for next year.
What's the difference between what you're actually getting versus what you had estimated?
I think I
year?
estimated 300,000, and we got
We're gonna get 77,000.
77,000 more than what I estimated for this year. But I'm sorry that won't be the case next year, likely due to this shortfall issue.
I'm sorry, just to clarify, so you said 375 what they owe us based on their formula,
That's what we're going to get this year.
and we're not actually gonna get that amount?
No. That is the amount that we are getting
Okay.
this year. That's all set. But for next year,
For
but for
next
next
year,
year, we're not going to get what I would typically
So was
estimate.
that number included in the assessment that resulted in the 290, on the,
Yes.
okay,
In the overage.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. So I just want to kind of give an overview, because what had happened was, so in 2022, there was legislature passed that students can now stay in our district for special education until they turn 22, but the special ed aid budget for the state did not kind of, I think, account for all the students that we'd still be paying for, or across the state, that turned 22 since that point. So that's just one factor, but there's other factors as well. So those are just some kind of overview pieces, but I'm happy to take any questions. Student services is a lot of information.
Are there any cost penalties in the transition from the NEC to the BCBA plan?
Are there cost penalties?
Yeah, like, are you on contract, or is that?
Oh, no.
contract renewed
We're,
every
everything's
year?
all set, and we've already worked on the separation
Oh,
for that partnership. And no, there's no penalties or anything to that effect. Yeah, it's a year-to-year contract.
Yeah, I really appreciated your opening comment, because that's what I'm interested in quizzing you on.
Okay.
Well, because it's very important, but you said it, and so I'm happy about that. So how many out-of-district placements do we have? How are we trending? Do we have enough space to accommodate programs? I'd like to put a little more flesh in the bone of keeping kids in the school.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. So right now for the co-op itself, so we have, I believe, 12 across the SAU. So at the, yeah, yeah. So at the co-op level, it's less. I don't like to go too far into numbers just in case, just for,
Yeah, no,
identifying
I'm
factors and
generic,
such.
I'm
So
generic.
across the SAU, that's
I'm
that's
about
that's
money-
the number.
money and
And then of
space,
course,
and-
changing, students change from district to district, so but that's our number now. And then there's some students in charter schools, there are some students in, different,
So which
Other
charter
avenues.
schools so we see, so Academy of
Is the
Science and
Montessori
Design?
school a charter
so
school?
Montessori school is a private school, that's separate. We don't pay special ed services to that school.
So who would we pay?
Charter schools, so Academy of Science and Design is right now one of the charter schools that we work with.
Is the
It's
other
the charter
one
school. It's
like-
actually the only charter school we're working with
Oh, okay, I
at the
was wondering
moment. But
about
there are others in the past. Micro Society has been one in the past. Those are really the only two that I've worked with in my
Do we have
time
to
here
go there, or where are the services provided?
at
Here?
the charter school.
At the charter school. Okay. Are you going to continue with my question? What are the trends?
Oh,
how
so
we-
we're, sorry, thank you,
Space.
I appreciate it. So yes, so we, again, it's really looking at what the students' needs are, and we look to build as much as possible in our districts. So right now, we're trending, we're doing really well building the programs. The middle school has done an amazing job building the programs where we have not had to send students out of district. The high school is actually in development for another program right now, as we're seeing larger cohorts of students with different needs. So we're trending to really keep
How about the
the
elementary school?
students in.
Because if we lose them in the elementary school.
Elementary schools are doing wonderfully. There were 2 programs in Brookline that were built in the past year and a half that are working out wonderfully, and I see those continuing. So things are really very stable right now.
So
As far as keeping kids in district, I do not see that number of out-of-district students increasing in the next year.
So we don't inherit kids out of district in this district, inherit kids that we then have to work hard to get in district.
That depends. I mean, are you speaking about if someone moves into our town,
No,
or are you
I'm
speaking?
talking about our 2 elementary schools. We have space problems, in some cases, money issues, and I want to know if that's being managed across the SAU successfully, in your opinion.
I would say that it is. I mean, I think that as we build and we look year to year at space and at the programming, we work with the buildings creatively to make sure that there is space. As far as students who are out of district in the elementaries, some may stay out of district as they move up here. Some students may come back in district. It really depends on the student needs and what programming we have available. I'm not sure that I'm understanding the question.
No, I think you're understanding the question. It's just that I don't know that you can get into the granularity that he's seeking, but
Well, you certainly can with respect to space. We all know that space is starting to become a problem.
Sure.
So are there any programs that you would have built had you had the space?
No,
Has space been a limiting
No,
factor
no, space has not been a barrier.
anywhere in the SAU?
No.
Okay.
No, we've had to be creative, and there's future planning that's now in progress at a couple of buildings to make sure that as we grow, we have some plans in place, like at the elementary level.
In your out-of-district placements, are some of those close because you're doing programs with, joint programs with surrounding schools so that it's an easy transportation issue, or maybe a different way of saying it is, how distant are the most distant programs?
Yep, so the farthest is probably about an hour. But we do have some students closer by as well. Again, because because we plan so much for students to be serviced in district, it's very kind of like unique needs that we would need to send out. So we have to kind of go wherever the school is that has those services. We do have some close by. The farthest is about an hour.
Do we have programs that we share with other schools, either, say, Amherst, Milford, Nashua?
Typically, if we work with other schools, they'll tuition into us at the elementary level. People send their students to our programs and and reach out all the time to send their students here.
Are we still
Okay.
sending kids to RSAC?
Yes, there is some at RSA. Again, I'm just trying to be careful with how much I say, but yes,
I'm trying
yes.
to figure out if our,
Yep.
if
So
our
we work with
involvement
RSAC, yes.
RSAC is still
Yes.
beneficial to us.
It is. Yes, it absolutely is.
Okay.
Can you give us a rough idea of how many students come or tuitioned into our
So
system?
as of right now, because that's been a space issue at the elementary level, so we would tuition students in if there was more space at the primary school in Hollis. That's where I get most of our calls for. But we had two tuitioned in the past three years at the elementary level. At the high school, we have gotten requests recently, and we're entertaining some of those.
As far as identifying students goes, I'm sure you know, you most likely know what the state averages are, and I understand that this is all unique. Nevertheless, how do we compare in identifying students with the state averages?
As far as students that are out of district or
No,
numbers
just
in general?
identify. I'm just curious
Yep.
in trends. Are more and more a higher percentage of kids being identified over the last 10 years?
We've actually stabilized, and we are right now at the co-op. I believe we're slightly below the average, actually. At the elementary level, again, depending on the building, we're slightly below too. And we've really done a really
And has
Had a
that
nice
been
job
trending
looking at
up
that.
or not trending at all?
trending up in identification.
Yeah.
No, I don't think that we're trending up in identification at this time.
Are we seeing a higher percentage of students identified year over year?
No. I don't believe we are. And if we look at and I'd have to look at all of
Yeah,
our exact
it's not
numbers,
something that
but
jumps out at
it's
you.
nothing that's jumping out.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
huge
what I was
number.
asking,
Yep,
yeah.
no, there's nothing that's jumping out.
is
In
it
fact, the
clearly
numbers at the
dropping?
co-op for this year were lower than I had even, when I was looking at them for this year, I was like, wow, those are lower than the past 2 years.
Okay, well, thank you.
I think that's a direct result of early identification and the success of our programs at the elementary level that
Yeah, no, you gave a very good report card of your program.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Any other questions?
So so you mentioned some of the programs that are being developed in the primary schools. Do you feel, are those programs are based on the specific populations
Correct.
themselves? But, so I guess based on your experience of putting certain programs in certain places, you can kind of see what works best, what might need to be replicated,
Correct.
or, make adjustments if something needs to be replicated on the Hollis or the Brookline side.
Correct.
What
Yep.
works best.
Yes, and we've even looked at the program sharing, so you speak across districts. We have looked at Brookline and Hollis as well to, see if we needed to have students in different programs in different buildings depending on what the needs are.
Yeah.
So we have that flexibility even within our own elementary schools.
From a staffing perspective, are we fully staffed for paraprofessionals?
So for co-op,
For
okay.
co-op.
So
Co-op,
co-op,
back to the
yes,
co-op.
co-op. So co-op, yes, we are staffed, and we have really a great benefit that we have very few people that we have to contract with as providers, and none of them are paraprofessionals. Our paraprofessionals are all our own staff. We do not contract out for paras here at the co-op. But some of those other providers like speech, OT, some of those are often you have to contract out more. But this year we have in-house employees for most of those positions.
That's great. So are any of the paraprofessionals, do they have additional certifications registered behavior
RBT,
technicians?
yes.
So do we provide that kind of PD in-house?
Yes.
And we have the staff that's able to supervise them?
Yes.
And approve all of the requirements that they need to be certified and
Yes.
things like that? And I guess we might get into this, talking about the Hessa agreement, but once certified, do they have a change to their hourly rate structure?
Yes, so the certification for RBT is a little bit different, but there are other needs for students that we call personal care, which we will be talking about. That changes some, and I'll explain what that looks
Yeah.
like when we do the Hessa agreement, but
And
that
and
changes
that's
their
something
salary
we've
differential.
kind of had in place for a while
Yes,
now.
yes, yeah, we just changed it slightly
Yeah.
this year.
Okay. Go ahead, Mike.
No, that's it.
Oh, all set, okay.
Anyone else?
Okay, Great, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. If anyone thinks of anything, please just
Yeah,
let
just
me
jump
know,
in.
and we can certainly follow up with Lauren to get some additional information. So as I said, there were not any other changes to the operating budget. At this time, I'm not sure if anyone has any other questions or would like any additional information in the time between now and the public hearing, but this is our last meeting before the public hearing. So, if no one has any additional requests at this point, but you think of something, please do let me know, and Kelly can still get me
I have a
additional
question.
analysis.
The write-up for the annual
Yeah.
booklet, is that done or is that drafted or?
It had to be,
Had to be in?
it was due last week, I could share it with everyone.
Okay.
Follows a very similar format to what I've provided in the past, and really just updated
Okay.
for current financials, so
Thank
I'll make sure everybody gets that.
So I was gonna ask if you need any help,
Just the
but I,
whole contract?
Yeah, it really was
just
that
those
same
changes.
format, I just, updated it for the new, for where we were for 25. There really aren't many references to 26, other than,
They have that. They can show.
Yeah, I'm good.
we
They
looked
were
at
on it.
Hessa
We could share.
and,
For next-
in 26, and, I think that,
and for the hearing next week, do you need any help with the presentation?
we're gonna get to that
Okay.
later, probably not, but let me just see one quick thing. Okay, yeah, no, there's really not a lot of mention of 26, so. Okay, so just, one more time to say where we are, we're at the 31.160 million, that's included. We'll, address the differences or changes or amendments that may, have the potential to be made by the school board. And, we'll talk about the metrics for the public hearing going forward, so it doesn't look like we have any other questions on the operating budget at this time. So, moving on to, the solar project. Right now that's listed as Article 3. The $220,639 is, an annual payment based on a 15-year lease. I did share the packet with everyone late in the day, again, I apologize for that. Tom, or any member of the facilities committee, since we have 4 people present, we've never had so much participation in a committee, in our membership, so I think it's great. So if anyone would like to just, it is, the solar project is one project we have really not talked about here at the budget committee. Kelly's passing around a little financial summary I asked her to put together. But if any of the 4 of you could give us a little bit of an overview of, I think this package had a couple of different options. So what option was finalized and supported by the school board, that is gonna be the one discussed for the warrant.
I'd like to see what's coming around. Do you wanna talk to it?
No, I'd like you to talk.
Since I wasn't at the last school board meeting, but I watched it.
Oh.
So I just wanna see what this says. No, this doesn't have multiple options. This is the option that we're.
Right, this is the
looking
one
at.
that we recommended, yeah.
Real quickly, the project itself is one to put rooftop solar panels on both the middle school and the high school. The goal being to offset a significant portion of the co-op's electrical use. The choice of putting it on the rooftop has to do with a preferential situation as far as the costs related to Eversource in connecting. There was a very expensive estimate of the cost to go a larger ground-based array that because of where it connects to the system. I don't want to go into all the details, but what's being proposed would put rooftop solar on both buildings. It would be somewhat of a phased installation because it's tied to the replacement of sections of roof so that we would put it on new roof sections to minimize the cost and inconvenience of having to remove it if more work is done. It's not a technical problem. From what I understand, it's actually been accomplished successfully and with no side effects in the Hollis district. But it's better if you don't have to do it if you put it on a new roof.
So because we have, I think it was like a 10-year phase-in of the roof replacement at the high school, and I think
We're well into it. I think it's.
Yeah, I think we're around 8 or 9.
No,
They would
we're
envision this
actually-
taking
10 is how.
2 to 3 years to actually get the installation complete, isn't that correct?
Well, I think in the high school, we're clear, we're good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because we're on the
Yeah.
last section and it
Oh.
probably wouldn't take panels anyway.
Yeah, and so we prioritize on the middle school of doing that roofing section first. That would be getting the majority of it, so that it's not a 10-year install, but it's not all gonna get done in one fell swoop.
Okay, and I guess that was my question, like,
Right.
is this,
It's a
would it
couple
be
of years.
substantially more cost just to do include the cost of the full roof replacement?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
But we
Well-
do have the first section of the middle school replacement is in the budget, in
Right.
this budget.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll likely use, or we'll likely, whatever section of the roof that replaces will have solar panels on
Yep.
it as quickly as we can, yeah.
Part of it's cost, but part of it is also just the logistics of doing that much work.
Yep.
Getting crews to
Yes.
do that much in one fell swoop is also difficult, even if you had the money.
And ordering the panels, that could be a killer right there.
Yeah,
when
so-
We're not
so
sure how long that will take.
there's elements to it.
Right.
But from a financial standpoint, the key elements are, this is essentially structured as a lease purchase, where EEI will purchase the panels and lease them to us while we pay them off. Is that a correct understanding?
No,
No?
EEI, we don't have, they will bill us for it and we'll go out and get a lease from a
okay.
lender.
Okay.
yeah.
The current structure of the financing that's being proposed is meant to make use of the fact that there are some very generous federal rebate programs, approximately 25%, currently available. Unless that changes, this mechanism allows us to take the amount you see in the warrant article, knock 25% of it off right off the bat. So we have to put the warrant article for the full price, but the net cost to us, if the rebates are in effect and we go this way, would drop by 25%. On top of that, the monthly lease payments would be offset by a significant savings in electrical charges. Now, this estimate is based on current rates and is therefore viewed to be somewhat conservative because it's quite likely that commercial electric rates will rise over the lifespan of it. But based on that, the numbers that you see here show down at the bottom, the estimated cost, looking at the bold numbers, estimated cost, potential rebates leave you the estimated net cost. The estimated annual savings of $142,000 per year end up with, am I reading this correctly, approximately $79,000, $80,000 a year of actual new cost for doing this solar panel. So, and then that is spread over approximately 11 years, after which the full savings becomes true savings at whatever the prevailing rate is for electricity at that time. So not only would an escalation in utility rates shorten the payback period, but it will also increase the savings. And the system itself, although would not be without maintenance during that period, but the system itself is estimated to have conservatively a 25 to 30 year life.
So the town of Hollis has on its warrant an article to enter into community buying for a community purchase agreement for the town. And it's an
Community buying of what?
Electricity.
Okay.
So, it's one of, Tom, you can, speak to this probably with a little bit more detail and finesse than I'm going about to. That plan is, something where everyone in Hollis, if the community supports it, everyone is part of the community power purchasing group, and you would have to opt out. So I wonder how that would affect the school district.
So, to our knowledge, the school district is not included in that calculation because they're currently purchasing their own electricity under a separate contract from Eversource, is that correct?
Well, yeah, we have a third party, actually, Eversource and a third party, yes.
So in that case, the CPC agreement would not be an opt-out, it would be an
Okay.
opt-in. If you have a contract,
Yeah.
you have to satisfy your contract obligations before you can
Okay.
opt into the CPC agreement. So the school district was not included in the calculations.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
And one of the things I just want to point out, Darlene, is when we were first looking at the overall structures of HVAC and bonding and this sort of thing, we had a target amount we wanted to stay under. If you look at the amount that's proposed in Article 1, and you look at the net estimated lease payment on this, combined, they're still less than what's coming off, so this whole program is still a net neutral to reduction, and I haven't been involved in the programs in Hollis, but from what I understand, the finances are generally presented at a relatively conservative level. So the only big variable that I see right now is hearing that some of the financing options may be cheaper than we even considered in the program, which would all increase the benefit.
And, so, part of, I know that this is the end result of a year-long, study by the facilities group, and it starts to it's replicating where the Hollis School District started. I don't even know how many years ago that was. Where they put solar panels on the schools and things like that. So, I don't know if anyone spoke to, greater capacity of the panels since the primary school project was completed?
That is
or-
it's factored in based on what is currently available. It's not, the modeling is real time.
Mhm.
So I don't know what it is, but in terms of cost per kilowatt, it's based on current costs of panels, efficiencies of panels, the size of panels.
And whatever improvements have been made over that time. So one of the other things they
Excuse me,
sorry.
and it also, the projections, I know, factor in their modeling for over the life degradation of output. That's part of the conservatism of the program.
Right. Is there any plan for, I think one of the other aspects of the primary school and elementary school schools project was like a student education aspect? Has there been any consideration for, I don't know if the high school has like a conservation club or anything like that, or plans on integrating anything with a physics department, or seeing if there are educational opportunities that result of kind of completing this project?
That has not been a topic of discussion within the facilities committee or at the board to date.
Boy, is that a great suggestion.
Get some kids up on the roof.
Yeah.
Hammers and nails and.
Let's wait till it thaws.
Hold this wire.
Let's not do that.
I know.
Especially some boys with no sense.
Yeah, that's.
My guess is that if this were to occur, this is just my personal opinion, if this were to occur and get approved, everybody I know who's put solar in their house becomes a math whiz because they're minute by minute
There are apps now, you can track it and
calculating
look
all
at
these
it.
things. They become geography whizzes, become math whizzes, engineering people, so I would find it hard to believe that that could be avoided if this goes through.
Right, I should ask, who's gonna have the app on their phone?
Who isn't?
District
Believe me,
user.
in our committee, we have people with apps.
Yes,
And,
I know.
I
we've
would
been
be
shown-
surprised if it wasn't put on the website.
Yeah, yeah.
Just a couple of other pieces. We have the history of the Hollis School District, which is a successful history, and Rob was able to speak to that. So that's a plus. I was concerned about solar panels being attached to the roofs. In fact, they are not attached; they are ballasted. So I was pleased with that. I was more interested in the ground mount system, but the connection charge to Eversource was $1.5 million more. I never could understand why, but $1.5 million more, and that killed the ground system as opposed to the roof mounted system. So I think this is going to be very positive. It's not going to cover 100% of our electrical use, which the ground system would have aimed to do. But given those other considerations, we have a history of it, and that it's ballast mounted, and that the panels are, the panel construction is a totally mature industry now, with not many gains to be expected in the near future, so it's time to do this.
For the rebates, does it look like those federal rebates will last throughout the phasing of the project?
No, the rebate is on the initial purchase cost, so
Oh, okay.
it comes in, it happens up front.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, should
Okay.
be the first year, yeah.
Quick question. I wanted to ask, what is the actual total bill for electricity for the schools?
I do
Well,
not have that
I
number
guess I
off the
can-
top of my head.
But I guess I can just figure it out by doing the calculation myself. 1/0.776% equals the actual
Yeah.
bill, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the correct
All right.
formula.
The other one is, you say the lifetime of the system is about 20 to 30 years, say.
Mike was saying conservatively, they rate them at 25 to 30.
Is that so the panel, in my mind, the system is a total system
In that,
versus individual panels.
within that, when I poked at it, inverters have a lifetime of about 10 years or more, but frequently get updated anyway because of efficiency upgrades and things, and so there's minority cost in that. I think the panel life is based on remaining at least 80% of original output. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my understanding. It's around 80%. So they say the panels don't just fail usually.
They just degrade.
They degrade
gracefully.
over time, and they rate the life of how long will it be that it'll continue to produce at least 80% of its original capacity. So that's where that comes in. Occasionally a panel does get damaged and it has to get replaced, and I don't know, for all I know, there may be warranties or insurance or things that cover that, but that's no different than if your roof gets damaged or a window gets broken. It's not a planned activity.
Is there maintenance required for the panels each year, or in season?
Generally not. I think that there is a cleaning process.
You know, if you
But
don't melt
the
the
people
snow
from
off
Hollis
or
would know
anything.
better. Do you know if we do any?
We do not at this point.
Yeah.
We're looking into service contracts because they're aging now,
Yeah.
so that we can
Yeah.
evaluate whether we need to do that.
I know some people. My experience with people who have them on their house, and I know some people do stuff and others don't. I think part of it depends on the weather patterns, whether you're under trees, the bird population.
What's the duration of the lease or bond is anticipated?
The one that's in the Warrant article is 15 years.
It's 15 years.
The roof of these buildings, are they flat? Are they sloped?
The roof is flat.
Flat?
The
That's why we
mount,
can do ballast mounts.
The
as
mount
opposed
has
to
a
through the
has a
roof.
slight incline to it.
Okay.
It's a calculated depending on where you are on the earth.
Okay, so when it snows on it, it's just gonna cover the solars and there's like nothing you can really do about that.
No, but
until
they're
the snow
colored,
melts.
they tend to clear themselves quite quickly because they're
Yeah.
dark in nature.
Panels will be angled, the roof will be flat, but panels will be angled.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, the panels are at an
Catch the
angle.
sun.
Okay, alright.
Yeah,
yeah, that's a good question, but the amount of time that snow sits on a panel over the course of a year is probably very minimal.
It depends on, I mean, here lately, we've been having snows that, you know, there's not a whole lot of snow and it disappears fairly quickly. More traditionally, a few years ago, we'd have several feet of snow sitting
But-
everywhere.
but the-
Now, that wouldn't,
yeah.
that
One of
wouldn't
the things
disappear
is,
though.
Yeah,
in a
no,
net
that would-
meter, in a net metering environment, which is, it's an
Yeah.
annual thing. The snow period is also the period when you have the least electricity being generated, period, because
Yep.
the hours of exposure
Sure.
and the angle is low. So if you look at, it's a weighted system in that regard.
Yep. But for the solar panels that we have, we were told that basically if part of it's obscured, you
It's-
kind of lose the whole panel.
Correct.
So if you've got solar panels that are sitting there at an angle and you've got 4 feet of snow, 3 or 4 feet of snow that's covering up the bottom part of it, it might block solar production until that snow is removed or melted.
And that's why sometimes they put them horizontally rather than vertically, so that you have a panel that's fully above that threshold. That's part of the design.
Mm-hmm.
So based on what you just said, we'll be banking net meter dollars while there's no one at the school,
Yes.
in
Over
the
the summer,
summertime,
yes.
and we'll cash those in over the winter.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
So,
That's
so
how it
when
normally
there's snow on
works.
the panel we're not generating anyways, we still have our
In the
kitty from the
summertime,
summertime.
it's maximum bank, it's
right,
maximum
and there's minimal usage.
gain.
Right.
We can always change the school system to operate during the summer and take 3 months off during the winter.
Yeah, just like Alvern.
There you go.
Great.
Okay, any other questions? Awesome, thanks, Tom, Raul, Kelly, for your
Tom.
help, over the year on that, committee, I think. you
So this
guys
is the
did
facilities
excellent
committee
work.
plus a few people?
This is, well, well, you, and Kelly have all
Plus-
been on that committee, and I find it hysterical every single month that we have 4 people sitting on this committee that are on that committee.
Plus my husband's on the committee too,
Oh.
so.
How funny, I didn't even know that, that is so funny. Wow, okay, so facilities are covered, great. Okay, thank you again, you know, it stands, I'll make a standing kind of comment for all of these articles. If you do think of anything after the meeting and need some, additional information or follow-up questions, just forward them to me and we'll get those answered in advance of the public hearing. Great, thank you so much. Moving on to Article 4, that is the Hessa agreement. As a reminder, the HEA agreement was standardized at last year's district meeting, so there's no HEA agreement on this year's warrant. We're pursuing the second year of that contract. If those expenses are included in the operating budget that's been put forward, but we are going to move forward with a new Hessa agreement that Krista and Lauren can speak to this evening.
Hey, Kelly. I'll just go through a brief explanation. The committee, the team was Beth Williams, Kate Stoll, also from the school board, Lauren and Kelly and myself. Most of what you're reading is housekeeping things that we already do that we wanted to make sure were put into the contract. We also are trying to make the Hessa contract kind of meet a little bit more with the Hollis Hessa contract as well as eventually Brookline too, so that the 3 are kind of working together and using a lot of the same language that we have, so it's easier for our administrative staff. One area that I do want to show you or explain to you before I get into the numbers is 14.6, and Lauren alluded to this a little bit earlier. She put together a fabulous idea, and it's going to be so helpful to our students as well as our support staff. Explain that.
So 14.6 talks about that personal care differential. So for paraeducators that work with students with specific needs, and I kind of summarized them a little bit in this article, they'll have an hourly differential rate above their base salary pay. And that's only for the hours that they're working specifically with the students. So if the student is at lunch, they're not getting it for that time period, that differential. So right now in the current contract, there's a 4-tiered system as far as what that differential is going to be. But again, over the years, we really feel the need to tighten that up a little bit and look at we're actually moving to 3 differentials tiers, and that helps with both business office, but also with the student needs and how we're identifying which students require staff with this specific training that get the differential. So really what's changed here is that overall explanation of the student need and going from 4 hourly differentials to 3. And there's no budget impact. The dollars are the same. Like there's no change as far as what we've been kind of covering in personal care differentials so far.
So depending on
The level of the
level
student
of
need.
care, that's how
Correct.
the 2,200, 3,400,
Correct.
6,400 would determine.
Correct.
Question for you, Laura?
Yes.
14.6A.
Yes.
Does that seems really open-ended? Do I understand that the change could be literally anything,
As far as
the rate change?
which of these 3 rates are appropriate for the student
Oh,
need?
not the differential pay
Correct.
associated with, okay. got
Correct.
it.
Yeah, it's just which of, and what we're looking at to determine, we have rubrics that determine what level of need a student has or a program has. So really, we're looking to move to a program model because we cross-train paraeducators to work with different students. So that's what we're looking
Well,
at.
I
But yeah,
thought
that's,
you were saying that the dollar amounts
yes.
could be
No.
adjusted.
No. We try to keep it, we're trying to tighten it up and make it as easy as possible also for the business office. So no, there's no changes in those rates. Yeah.
Okay, and then moving on to the money, which is what I think you guys like the most to talk about. We, just to keep in mind, we have kept our caps, dollar caps for the insurance, and this contract is not standardized. The healthcare issue is an issue that we had a lot of discussions about because it is, it gets to the point where they're losing money because our insurance was going up so much, or like in everyone's example, and that's why we met 2 years ago to work with that. This year, our GMR came in at 8.9, which we were really lucky because many districts weren't so lucky. And so instead of we're showing the percentage, but we do have caps, but we're showing the percentage of what the cap is next to it. So in a single, we're paying 97%, in a 2-person, 82%, and in a family, 68%. So if you could see that next to the GMR. So what the current is and what percentage of the total. We were paying 96, 81, 63. We did increase a little bit in those. For year 1, basically all 3 years, it's a 2.75% plus their step, and off-step it's 3.4% off-step. And then if you look at the next page, you can see what the grids will look like, where the starting pay will be at Cat 1, Step 1 for each year, and what they're gonna look like.
So what is the current census of the staff? Like how many are off staff?
We have,
Or
it's off-step.
percentage on or off, either one?
We have 52 members, 36 are taking insurance. I would
can't remember how
say
many are off
it's
step.
more than half are off-step,
I thought it was in the high 20s.
high 20s.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought. Please don't quote me. I do not have that.
I don't have that.
Okay,
High 20s out of, what was the number again?
Approximately
52.
That'd be approximately 50%.
52, so 50%-ish.
Yeah,
I could be wrong though. I want to.
we don't know for sure, but I
36 out of
think it's a little
52.
bit.
36 people out of 52.
36 take insurance, yes,
69.
out of
oh,
52.
yeah, 69%. Okay, and so the categories are like paraprofessionals predominantly category 3?
They are all category 3.
Yeah.
Okay, and then food services predominantly which category?
Category 2, and then one person is category 3, I believe, yes.
And custodial?
They're category
Custodial
2.
is starting, yeah, starts at 2.
primarily.
We moved them up.
Who's at 4 and 5?
I believe.
Yeah, custodians start at 2, the grounds maintenance workers at 3, the building maintenance shift is at 4. And we've changed, we no longer, everyone is, there's no secretaries anymore, we have now administrative assistants.
Right, and they're 5?
4 and 5,
4 and 5.
depending on the role.
Okay.
And the paras were what?
3.
3.
What's, who's our hardest hire? The paras? Most difficult to find?
Custodians as well.
Custodians
Yes.
probably here in this district.
In,
Do we run 2 or 3 shifts of custodians?
2.
how much ahead of the elementary schools are we on the pay scales? I mean, they're having trouble, correct?
Well, they're having trouble,
finding-
one of their
They're-
biggest issues is, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is that they don't provide insurance. They don't
Insurance,
work
right,
enough
right.
hours to provide insurance. And so because we are able to provide insurance, because they get enough hours in, we tend to be able to
Well,
find.
So that's one of the
yeah.
proposals on the elementary school side
For
for
Hollis.
Hollis, is to include benefits for the support staff. For the contract
And
that's gonna be
how do
discussed.
how will their rates compare to these rates? So I understand the
I'm
health
looking,
insurance.
I'm
but-
looking it up.
They're pretty comparable,
Yeah.
Pretty-
actually. In fact, I
Okay.
think this year they have higher rates than the co-op does.
At the Hollis and Brookline has more difficulty?
They are at lower
In
rates.
attracting-
They're about 90% of
Oh.
what co-op has.
Okay.
And they are having this, Hollis and Brookline are both having difficulty with paras and custodians in terms of hiring.
Yeah. Brookline for
well, the
FY
benefits is a big
25.
deal.
Yeah.
Yeah. Brookline's, it's comparable, it's just slightly lower.
So I'll just comment, I'm pleased that you're holding the line back on the family plans, because I'd rather see the salaries go up. I understand that's a difficult call, but nevertheless, offering the single and the two-person plan, and then cutting it down for the family, and some people just, you know.
We don't have
I
a
know
lot of
that's a hard
people
one, but-
using the family,
Yes.
That
so
makes
it's
it
not
easier,
as
yeah.
difficult to do that. And, you know, when we were negotiating, we tried to give different offers to see, you know, what would be best for the Hessa people, and they were happy to pay more, and the insurance is there, but we're not giving 100%. So we're paying more so that people can decide what to do with their.
Do we lose people once they're off step? I mean, are they making enough so that it's really, we still lose them there?
No,
No,
we're not.
no,
No.
we
Oh, we
haven't, no, we have,
Well, I mean, you put the biggest chunk of your money in the off-step people.
Right.
Um,
Well, because they're not getting the
The step.
plus the step.
yeah, gotcha.
So
Right.
that's
Yeah.
why we
Yeah,
gave
yeah.
them
Right.
more.
Okay.
Do these steps, and I should have had this calculated, have the same compression and, that we
Yes.
mirror,
We haven't
Yes.
changed
We
that,
didn't
yes.
change them.
Consistent?
Yep.
Stayed the same
Okay.
after we changed that a few years ago.
What's the increase from one step to the next step?
It differs, but it's approximately, it's between 3 to 5, depending on where you are.
Yeah, I think it's closer to 3, yeah, for
Yeah, I'm just doing
most
some,
people.
I'm just kind of checking.
And the move from one step to the next step is just a year.
Well, you're,
of-
because the step table's increasing, you get the step plus the table change.
Yes,
Right.
but setting aside the year-to-year contract changes.
Right.
If you're step 3 one year, you're gonna be on step 4
Oh,
the next.
Yes,
year.
the next year, yes,
Yes,
yes.
Right,
yes.
right.
Looks like a nice job.
Thank you.
For some
So it's
reason.
between
What am I
like
missing?
3 and
Had a good
4%.
team. It was a great negotiation.
It was a wonderful negotiation.
It was,
For some reason, this always comes across as being reasonable, good value, well done, you know what I mean? Everybody supports this.
I
Yeah.
hope so, because
These are key people. and
they're
They are
so
key
important.
people. They're
We have-
so
and
vital.
we are so lucky to have such a great group of people working with us,
Yes.
so.
This is a good investment, I think.
Totally.
I agree.
Totally.
So I know that we have 1 year, we do this, we don't Sanbornize this agreement. Do we have estimated costs for the outer years as well?
Yes,
For,
they should be on
Oh,
there.
yeah. For 27,
On the
28.
bottom
yes,
of that.
yes, yes, sorry.
Oh, that bottom
Yeah,
was for
yeah.
the whole.
Total
Oh, it's
cost.
right there, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yeah, year 2 and year 3.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Okay, good.
And those two things on that show the same thing. I'm just showing you in a different, this is how it looks in the contract, and that's kind of Kelly's much more broken down format that makes a lot more sense.
And just one important note is we're assuming an 8% increase in health insurance for year
Oh,
2
good
and
point,
3. So it might be more, it might be less, but those are the caps.
Right, as dollar caps, they're staying.
Yes.
Yes. And we do have in the contract, just as we have had before, that if the GMR is over 10%, that we can open the contract for just that and discuss it. There's no guarantee that we would do anything about it, but that we can open and discuss.
And if it did not increase by 8%, it went only up, I don't know, maybe by 4 or 5%, we would pay that level.
Amount,
They
correct.
wouldn't get paid out any difference or additional.
Correct.
So if
No.
if
Right,
it ends up being
correct.
lower, then
Correct.
they'd come under
Right.
that amount
Mhm.
then.
Correct.
Okay.
This is so good, I'm gonna suggest my wife become a full-time employee and I'll retire and get paid.
There you
Oh,
go.
my
Your
goodness.
program.
There you go. Perfect.
Great,
Any-
thank
any-
you so much.
Anything hiding in the language that you want to tell us about?
That you don't wanna tell us about?
I don't think we're that good.
I know, it's like, I don't think it's like.
Milkshake Monday.
Good job.
Great,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you.
If
for
you
doing
are
it.
done looking at them, or when you're done at the end of the meeting, if you just pass it by, I just don't want to have them out in the public quite yet until we,
Yeah.
I wrote on it.
oh, you can write on it, that's fine.
You just
I mean,
can't
I
keep,
can,
Oh,
but you
It's a
can't keep
question
it.
of what you wrote on
I
it.
cannot,
yeah.
You got a phone?
I have to make my notes on
so
Well-
you want both or just that one, right? This is the electric.
That's the solar.
Wait a minute.
It would,
That's fine.
I will say, it would be nice, my preference would be able to go home and study this. I know nobody else will, but, before I vote on it.
Well, we do have, I did share with everyone
Well,
the
I mean, can we
the red line
keep it?
version
I
of
don't
the
know.
contract, so you do have that.
Have they been ratified by either organization?
Yeah.
Both
they
have ratified, so we can
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, so-
Good.
I
All right.
don't know why you
Keep 'em.
couldn't.
No.
share them with your friends.
I mean, don't put, we'd rather you don't put them on
share with my
Facebook
wife.
or something
Yeah,
like
I
that.
mean, so,
What do you
yeah,
want?
go
Do you
ahead.
want it on X?
Alright.
So keep them.
No, I'm the only one that's retired and will sit and read it.
Not anymore.
I'm gonna get text messages from Tom.
Nobody
Questioning,
else
does
want
anyone
theirs
want
back?
I'm the one that I wrote my
You
comment
want-
on, I don't know.
Uh-oh.
To give back the right ones.
Let's just hand them all, you can find which one it is.
Look for your
Find
hand.
it.
Okay, great. And again, any other
Here's the
questions, if
stack.
you think of anything, in the middle of the night, you wake up and go, oh, I should have asked. Wait till the morning.
As long as you don't call us in the middle of the night, yeah.
Thank you so much. Really
Yeah.
appreciate the time and effort that goes into negotiating that. I'm glad it was a smooth negotiation, and I think we did come to a good place with it.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to Article 5, that's our SAU budget. This has been included in the budget trend file, and for the upcoming year, it is a very modest increase. Actually, no, it is
You have your
modest.
copy?
Very modest increase, for the, co-op. A lot of the expenses in the SAU budget were mostly mitigated by the fact that we're transitioning to a new superintendent, and there are some cost savings, from the salary perspective. But
Thank you
for
very
the-
much.
For the SAU, it's looking like it's only, like I said, under $2,000 increase year over year. There were some very minor, some shifts in, the apportionment formula that actually, I think, were favorable to us, and I think hit Hollis School District a little bit harder, so they absorbed a little bit more of an increase, than the co-op is, but it's a very, flat impact to the co-op for this aspect. Moving on to the $300,000 maintenance trust fund. So we were looking at funding it at a level of $300,000, and the costs that are included are for an elevator retrofit, section 10 of 10 of the high school roof, and a middle school roof section. So those roofing elements are included and funded through the maintenance trust and are not included as costs related to the solar project. So if
Or in
the
the
solar
budget.
project passes, right, the solar project does not pass, we're still replacing roof
Yes.
sections.
Assuming that article passes.
Assuming that article passes, yes. So, that's the $300,000
Yes.
for the maintenance trust. We have the $125,000 contingency. As a reminder, our retained fund balance, is not at the maximum of 5%. We're at a maximum of
This year, we're at 284, I believe.
Right, but I mean, from a percentage basis, we're not approved to a maximum of 5%, which is what the legislation
Right.
allows.
Correct.
Or I think at a maximum of 2.5%, and the board has traditionally kind of underfunded that.
Yes, they have.
And so we have kept the contingency as an article, and the $125,000 has been relatively consistent year over year. And those articles, and kind of the school board and budget committee, aspect of the warrant, as, mentioned earlier, or I don't think I mentioned earlier, actually, we're not funding, anything for the special education trust because it's fully funded as it stands right now, and so that is not included, for funding. That trust is at
$250,000, I believe.
Yep, 250,000, and, will remain at that level. So, let me just take 1 minute and look at the agenda. I wanna decide something, just where, see
Are
where
we
we are.
still talking about the warrant articles though?
Yeah,
Let's see, 8, 11, and 12.
yep.
If they make it to the floor, is that something that you are willing or able to talk to? Because I don't think anyone on the board is really gonna understand the impact of them.
Oh, I plan to, and I will do that either as a co-op member or as a citizen. So, if the co-op budget committee were to take a, position on, and I'll mention what those articles are, and want us to make a statement as the budget committee, I'll be happy to do that, and if we don't, I'll be happy to do that as a citizen. So, Articles 8 through 12 are petition warrant articles. Article 8 is for, including the tax impact on the warrant. Let me just jump to the ones Tom mentioned. Article 11 is for a budget cap. Article 12 is for a tax cap. And then we're left with then Articles 9 and 10. 9 is to establish a charter commission for the sole purpose of establishing official ballot voting under the current form of government. And Article 10 is the SB2 petition. So, from a just logistics perspective, when we go into the public hearing on the 4th. We're gonna have, there's a public hearing, certain petition warrant, the petition articles are gonna have a public hearing. There's a requirement for petition articles that they be heard in each town that comprises the co-op. The first one will be in Hollis on the same night as the public hearing on the rest of the warrant. So we're gonna open and close one public hearing on the first 7 articles, then we'll open another public hearing to hear the petitions. And then on the next week, on the 11th in Brookline,
No, the 5th.
the 5th, oh, the next day.
The next
Okay,
day.
the 5th, I'm sorry, the 5th in Brookline, there will be another public hearing on those same, just the petition warrant articles. And then we'll have met our obligation, from the logistics and legal requirements to be able to move forward then and put them to the warrant. And I would expect, and I'll ask the budget committee's opinion on this, in the past, we have made a recommendation as a budget committee on the tax cap. Tax impact on the warrant. I would recommend we take a position for a budget cap and a tax cap. Those are financial impacting. And the other two, for the Charter Commission and the SB2, I don't know that we're required to. I see that the way it's worded for the petition article on the Charter Commission, there's a comment about the school board and the budget committee both making a recommendation. The petition article on SB2 has just the school board. I don't know if legally, if moving to a Charter Commission, relieves the responsibility of a budget committee. I'll have to look into that, because in that
sure.
regard, I think I would have, I would like if there are certain elements to it that impact our role as the budget committee, I think we should probably have some position on that.
I have a question about SB2 and our current warrant articles. Is there a mechanism in SB2 that would allow for what we're doing with the co-op warrant, where we're presenting a budget that includes an amount of money to cover the furnace,
Oh.
and
question.
a warrant article for a larger project? I don't believe within SB2 there's any mechanism whereby you could then have it automatically trigger a reduction in the budget.
I don't
So
see how
what that means is under SB2, you have to pay double, triple for a year, and then hope that it doesn't get spent and gets rolled back. To me, that's a huge financial impact. And I would think that from the standpoint of having the ability to fund a program and not double fund it is a huge advantage of the traditional town meeting versus the SB2 structure.
That's a good example of the SB2 takes away flexibility and
Yeah,
being able
for
to
sure.
manage the process.
Tom, devil's advocate, though, why wouldn't they just offer a disposable warrant? In other words, 2 budget warrants, like, kind of like what we're suggesting, is if this happens, this is the warrant, number 12, we're gonna
I don't know that
recommend
you
for our
can
budget.
is the issue.
Can you have 2 budget warrants on the
Because
same?
when you have
Because
when you
SB2
have an
already has its
uninformed
defaults.
voting public, they could all pass.
True.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could all pass, right?
Yeah.
Which would be really ironic if you're trying to keep costs down.
It all comes down to the wording and the publicity and the comprehension.
And the understanding, right?
It's-
It-
Yeah,
So,
They're
to me,
incompatible.
that is, this year's
Yeah.
co-op warrant really highlights an advantage of having the deliberation and the voting combined.
Right.
That ability to do the amending.
Be nice to
You're
point
right.
that out while we're talking about it.
And maybe
Just
that
by
Well,
the
in
way-
that
Made in
regard, we
public.
should absolutely take a position as a
But-
budget committee,
yeah,
so.
By the way, when we're talking about how we're gonna offset $915,000 out of the budget, mention, by the way, this would never be doable if we were under the SB2 form.
Good point.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. So I know that, there have been, and I know I've been the one who's posed several legal questions with regard to these articles, and I think probably it's best to wait until, we're ready to take a position as a budget committee at the public hearing, and we can ask any legal questions, or Andy or Gina will give an overview of the kind of legalities and ramifications of the way some of these are, presented, written, what it means. I will say, you can, if they were to if both the budget and tax cap were to pass, you could have both, because one is on the budget, one is on a tax effort. So, you know, one doesn't cancel the other, one doesn't supersede the other, it's possible for them both to
But they
be
could conflict with
different.
one another.
Hmm?
They could potentially conflict with one another.
No, they're both caps.
Right, and one is a cap on the operating budget, and one is a cap on all of the
When I
warrant
say
articles.
conflict, I mean, in order to satisfy one, the things that you would do to satisfy one might prevent you from doing what you would naturally want to do to satisfy the other,
No.
because of the way that you structure things.
Is there a way to simplify the implication of each article? In other words, what is it that you're actually losing or gaining by passing it? In simple terms. I mean, what,
I think if we, as a budget committee, if we were to, present information, I think we would be talking about, the disadvantages of passing them.
yeah,
Not to put an assumption on how the budget committee would vote, but in both cases, I feel relatively confident in where we would fall. So that would be, our responsibility would be to point out why we would be presenting the position we're presenting.
right.
I think the biggest thing is that, and Brookline voters have experienced this, but I don't think they've actually recognized that they've experienced it, most of them, is that when you put a cap on something and there are things out of your control that go up, it prevents you from doing what you want to do anyplace else, because you're just limited. Most people aren't old enough to remember California Prop 2.5 stuff, but
I mean, I think one of the
it
things that,
collapsed their education system.
I think one of the things you would hear on both of those articles, is the fact that each of them do have override provisions. But again, it's about the limitation and the inflexibility of what implementation
It
does.
prevents your
There.
elected officials, to whom you've entrusted analysis and knowledge, from doing their due diligence and their best work.
Would the board be, having an opinion or a presentation on either of those? Oh, you were asking if the budget committee
My
would-
guess, and this would be coordinating with Holly, because she's gonna be
Right.
heading up that effort, but my guess is that there will be no presentations on the petition warrant articles.
Okay,
But, and I don't know how the moderator wants to do it, if a member of the board or the budget committee wishes to speak to it, whether they will just be asked to go up to the microphone.
I think
and do
that's
so.
the way it stipulates it in the rules, that you have the same 3 minutes that everybody else
It's not even
does.
the time, it's a question of
Yeah.
where,
Yep,
in terms of presence. I know they don't want board members speaking from the podium about board warrant articles because we've had our chance. But on petition warrant articles, we have not had our chance.
right. In the past, I think if we've spoken as a committee, he's allowed it to take place at the front of the room. But that would require us as a board, as a committee, to take a position
Yeah.
and make a decision that we are gonna be
Yeah.
presenting,
So my,
But we can have some follow-up discussions with the moderator about
Yeah.
that. And I know he'll be present at the public hearing, so.
Good.
thank you.
Sure. Okay, I think that, unless anyone else has any other questions, I think that gets us through the warrant. Let's see where we are. I wanted to just take a minute, and I don't have a draft presentation for the public hearing, but it does follow a format that I've been using for a few years now with a warrant overview. I include some metrics about student enrollment trends, the enrollment composition, our cost per pupil trend as calculated by the DOE, our tax effort trend, an overview of revenue and state aid, a summary of the financials and how expenses fall out from an apportionment perspective with an estimated tax impact. The unique nature of this year's budget means that I'm probably going to have two tax impacts for each community, because one would be a high and one would be a low, based on the 915,000 in that double count. So there'll be like in effect a range of where the tax impact would be. So that's my plan for how to present that information.
So you'll show that, can you show combined tax impact of 1 plus 3?
Yeah, that'll be in there.
So
The only-
specifically that because that's where the offset occurs. You know,
Yeah,
because you've got the high and the low, but if you get the low, you also get the adder. You follow me?
Are you expecting number 1 to be more popular than number 3?
No, I'm expecting that that number 1 may be impacted by what it does to number 3. Number 3 is the budget, right?
Number 2 is the budget.
Well,
Oh,
right now,
excuse
but
me.
it's-
I'm talking about 1 and 2.
yeah, well, you're talking about the two
okay.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I thought
that's-
the point you were making is by combining the 1 and 3, then you can show that it's around the budget threshold that we had set out
Yeah.
the goal, right?
I think we can do that in the presentation. One of the things I don't know, the question was asked, but I don't know that it was answered, is whether there is an appetite if 1 does not pass to not move 3.
Those are
Those are
things I think
different things.
you would
Well,
just.
I don't know if they want the solar if they don't get the HVAC thing, because of the impact to the roofing and all the mechanics. If we don't get approval to do any of the roof work for the HVAC work, do we want to start putting solar panels up on a roof when we know we've got stuff on this roof that's gonna fail? So I don't know the logistics of that, but what my question was, when we're showing the tax impact of 1, I was thinking it was 1 and 3, it was 1 and 2. Darlene was talking about a high and a low, but the low is only a low if you are adding 1 into it.
Well, right, it's assuming that, basically the high would assume everything passes except Article 1, and we keep the 915 in the operating budget. That's the high.
What would the low assume?
The low assumes 1 passes,
Okay.
and we make the adjustment
Okay, so
to the operating budget.
we're on the same page.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I just don't know
Yeah.
whether we would get 1.
If 1 fails, should we continue to push for 3 or not?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think both the boards need to make a decision on that.
But I would take the approach of, by combining 1 and 2, show exactly that it's around the threshold that we had as a goal. And the reason why they should both be supported is because several really good reasons, right?
My gut feel is that if 1 passes, the same people will also support 3. But if 1 fails, I don't know if there are people who would support 3 thinking that it's
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
I
a
think
money saver.
Absolutely there would be.
So
They're 2 completely separate issues.
Yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Okay, and then each article has its individual tax impact, estimated tax impact identified, but I'll see if there's some way I can combine the impacts of both projects together, if people wanna kinda think about that.
Darlene, what's different between what the petition warrant article is asking to be done about tax impact and what is we actually do?
The difference is that they're asking it to be put in the wording of the warrant itself. So, for example, the warrant would read, you know, the same thing, Article 1, the estimated tax impact of passage of this article is X.
Don't we
Cents
often
per
put that
thousand.
into the initial presentation?
We put that into the presentation. It cannot go, Jim O'Shaughnessy has addressed this at previous meetings, it cannot go in with any explanation, like, which is, you know, 3 cents higher than last year, or, you know.
Yep.
So it can't go in with any descriptors. The point I've made in the past is that it really has no context by just sticking it in there. It doesn't compare, it doesn't list last year's rate, like, particularly for the operating budget, impact of the operating budget is the largest piece of the warrant. Last year's operating budget impact was this year's is that. It
Yeah,
doesn't
to me,
allow
it's
for anything like that.
It's targeted as an add-on to SB2 article.
Yeah, and I think some SB2 communities do include tax rate within their language. We don't, and we present the information at the public hearing, and that presentation gets posted to the website. It's gonna be live streamed, it's recorded.
Oh, no, I'm
And so we
not
make that
suggesting we do it.
information available in context of the entire warrant.
Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting that we do it. I'm trying to understand
The purpose
why
of
we don't do it is really because, and what you're doing helps flesh out that picture. It's not just a simple, well, you do it here, why not put it there? Thank you.
And that's kind of possibly the answer I was looking for. We've been doing this forever. There's never been an issue. So what is the real purpose for why they keep insisting, whoever submitted this, to keep that it be added year after year? This is not the first time.
Oh, no.
So maybe in conjunction with SB2, it makes sense that the two go together. But there may be another reason why.
Well, it
reasons.
was successful in Brookline. Brookline does have that requirement now.
Yeah, but they have SB2 as well.
Well, understand,
Right.
yes.
And my personal opinion is it's again part of the scare tactic.
Well,
If all you're showing people is how expensive something is with no benefits attached to it.
and no explanation attached to it.
The other point that I try to make at the meeting is that, related to putting it on here, is that if you were to look at just the co-op warrant and the impact of each article, you can't add that up and find a comparable number on the tax bill that you receive. Because, and even if you were to look at a composite rate summary for your town, the schools are combined. So you would have to combine both districts, your elementary and the co-op impact, your town's effect, you know, combine them and compare them to your current tax bill.
And then in the proper proportions.
Yes. So it really is out of context. The individual pieces of our districts aren't directly comparable to any piece of paper that somebody has when they're looking at their tax bill.
So that adds more confusion, really.
I would think so.
Which lends itself to being used to confuse people
Yes.
if it's misstated.
Right.
So, okay, I will be working on the draft for the public hearing.
If you need any help, just
I will
push it out and-
let you know. The next item, I was gonna move school board to the end. I wanted to talk for a minute about the special meeting next Thursday, which is the
30th.
Recommend discussion?
Thursday.
The
hold on,
30th.
it's Thursday the 30th, right? Thursday the 30th.
Yes.
And I don't know where I have it out. Okay. So the two things that are gonna be on that warrant are both, neither one is amendable. And, I will make sure I send everybody the public hearing notice on that, meeting, I'm sorry, the special, the meeting notice for the special meeting, because it does include the language that's being recommended for defining capital expenses. So it's a change to the Articles of Agreement to define capital expenditures as basically any, principal and interest-bearing instrument. It's not just limited to bonds.
Is the meeting gonna be here, or?
It's at the high school in the auditorium, I believe.
At
7
o'clock,
Just like it was 5 years ago, right?
yes.
Or something like that?
Yes. And the second piece is to maintain the current apportionment formula. And again, it's a non-amendable motion for an up or down vote. There'll be some explanation, I anticipate, of the current formula that we have, and really just kind of allaying any concerns. And maybe the reasons why we're doing it here and not as part of the district meeting. 5 years ago, we did the exact same thing. 5 years before that, I think we had another special meeting to institute the article, which is really only changed 5 years ago by moving $1 between Hollis and Brookline, because there was a legal requirement to change the formula. That legislation has passed, and you can now affirm the formula that you have, which is basically what is intended at this meeting. So,
But you can still make a change if you wanted.
no,
No.
no,
It's
there's
an
no
up-down
amendment,
vote.
it's an up or down vote.
That's what the new legislation is?
No,
Because
what, you
the
can
leg-
still, it can still be changed, but if they vote at this meeting,
Yeah.
you will only be offered the opportunity to affirm it or not affirm it. If the answer is to not affirm it, it doesn't leave the opportunity at this meeting to propose an alternate at this meeting.
No, but I'm talking about the state legislature. The RSA, I guess, prior to that, required a change. Now,
Now you
you
do
can
not.
also add a no change.
That, yeah,
Correct.
Correct.
and that's what we wanna do. So, for instance, we were not proposing taking that dollar out, cause that would be a change, and then it becomes the whole discussion of amendable.
Right.
So we're proposing to keep it going. It's basically a formula that we've used for 11 years. And it's one of those compromises where it says if everyone's unhappy with it, it's probably as good as you're gonna get. The Dan Peterson School of Negotiation.
This is the rationale.
He was on the
also-
original committee too.
But,
This
but-
is the rationale also that nothing's changed.
yeah.
Our ADMs are relatively the same.
But the
So-
idea is, we're trying to decouple this from the March meeting to keep the March meeting manageable in length and content. Both of these are intended to remove obstacles from an efficient March meeting. The first one is so that the discussions on the capital improvements don't get derailed by a question of if we propose it as a bond. We have had bonds in the co-op. We've avoided having bonds in the co-op because of concern about the language. We want to take that off the table as being a point of discussion, because it really is not germane to the Warrant article.
Okay, so, we've already, Kelly, I just don't recall, there's no recommendation, school board recommends, budget committee recommends, listed with the, meeting notice, correct, like in the
No,
warrant itself?
there's not.
Okay, I would like to take a motion as a budget committee, just if a question is posed about support. Obviously, the school board is supporting it because they're putting it forward. So I would like a recommendation on each of the items from the budget committee, just in case the question comes up, and we could put forward a position of the
So you
committee.
want a sense of the board, or you want an actual?
I want an actual vote, please.
Now?
Yes,
On,
because.
on the article?
Because we don't, yeah, on the articles for next week, because we don't have an opportunity to meet,
Just
for
for-
that.
On the article for the January 30th meeting.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm gonna just see if I can
Rather
find
than
the
all the
wording,
warrant
because I
articles.
had it, and now I don't see where I put it.
Tom, if it doesn't get approved, what's the next step? We have to bring it
Which
up.
one?
If, I'm sorry, if the apportionment doesn't get approved, do we go up to the annual meeting and then have to discuss it there?
No, because
This
there,
is specifically
there's
for
currently
apportionment
nothing
capital
on the
one,
warrant
not that one.
to change it, but what might be added, I don't know, is
A petition warrant would be.
no, because I think the window
It's
is
closed.
Is already
February
closed.
It's closed.
I think what we
Then-
might do is either have it as an article or just a unilateral decision by the board to form a committee
Yeah.
to study it for the year going forward, which it's like a 9-month process, and it's a pain, and it creates a lot of divisiveness. I don't think we'll get something particularly different out of it.
So we don't have a time requirement of when this has to be resolved, is that what you're saying? We can go on,
We can until somebody makes a
because
motion.
5 years
We
is
could-
as soon as you can
We can kick the
approach it.
can.
Yeah.
Not when you have to approach it.
But he's right, the board would form a committee
Okay.
and then it's a pain in the butt.
Got
This
it.
is the
If
cleanest.
they want to,
If they want to, or just let it go.
then, yeah.
So do you
Wait till
want a
next
copy
year's
of the?
meeting?
I have it, I found it.
You wanna read it, or?
I am going to read it.
Mm.
So, Article 1, to see if school, Article 1, amend capital articles of agreement to clarify definition of capital expenses. To see if the school district will vote to clarify the definition of capital expenses in Article 4 of the Articles of Agreement of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District as follows. You'd be crossing out the expenses related to principal and interest of bonds, current and future, so that's being removed. And the Article 4 would read as follows. Capital expenses of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District payable in each fiscal year shall be apportioned based on average daily membership and equalized valuation according to the table below. Capital expenses shall include the costs of acquiring land and buildings for school purposes, the construction, furnishing, and equipping of school buildings and facilities, and the payment of the principal and interest of any indebtedness which is incurred to pay for the same or which is assumed by the cooperative school district, including but not limited to the principal and interest of bonds and leases under RSA 33:7-E.
So the new information is that itemized laundry list of what are typical capital expenses and the wording that it includes bonds and leases. Whereas we got rid of the word that just references bonds and interest payments and didn't have any examples of what would be a capital expense.
Move that the budget committee support this article.
Okay. Seconded by,
I'll second.
okay. All those in favor? 7-0-0. Article 2, continue the current method of apportioning expenses in the Articles of Agreement. To see if the school district will vote to continue the current apportionment formula set forth in Article 4 of the Articles of Agreement of the Hollis Brookline Cooperative School District. That's the wording, just as a reminder to folks. The current apportionment formula is a 95% ADM, 5% EV split on operating expenses, and a 100% EV on capital expenditures, and a $1 shift to Hollis. So we use EV on the capital piece and a combination of 95% average daily membership and 5% equalized value on the rest.
Move the budget committee support Article 2.
Moved by Tom Enright, seconded by
Oh,
Raoul. Discussion? All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? Brian? No abstentions, so vote is 6-1-0. Okay, thank you.
So you can speak to those if you wish.
if anybody
We're
asks
not,
for who
we are
opposes
not,
it,
I
you
will
can
say,
speak
we
to
are
that.
not in session
I won't be
as a
here.
board or
Oh.
committee. At that apportionment meeting, anyone in attendance is attending, as a citizen, so.
We don't sit up on the,
No.
on the
Mm-mm.
wherever.
Mm-mm.
Okay.
You're not in the hot seat.
So they're gonna have the the same layout as in the March meeting?
I have no idea.
Yes,
That's how it worked the last time, yeah, just.
With only one
only
table
the
though?
school. Yeah,
yeah, I guess.
Is
Yeah.
Diane Levitt gonna be there as well?
yeah,
Diane Levitt.
yeah, and I think Liz Brown is the
Oh, yeah, 'cause
moderator.
they have
Yeah.
to check us in.
Yeah, yeah, both sets of supervisors on the checklist, Drew Mason
That
isn't
would be the whole
available,
audience.
and Liz Brown is
Us
gonna be
and
the
them.
moderator for the night. She's the, Hollis School District moderator, and I don't know if Drew appoints her or how kind of that works, but they're gonna
Yeah,
do what
I'm
they
not
need to do,
sure.
and Liz is gonna be the moderator. Okay, thank you. I'm not sure if there's anything left for a school board update.
No, I was gonna say is pretty much all the things that have been discussed here are the same things that were discussed at the school board, except for some policy work, which doesn't really impact this group, and a really nice presentation about the curriculum development work being done in language arts or English? I'm not sure what they call it.
Language arts.
Language arts. And everyone's getting revved up for the future meetings.
Great. Awesome. Well, as I mentioned, we have the special meeting next week. We have a public hearing, which is also a joint meeting with the school board here on the February 4th at 6:30. It's still a 6:30 start, right?
Alright.
All right.
So
we'll get back to it.
Oh, wait, the public hearing
Yeah.
is on the
the
4th. I had it
Yeah.
on my calendar as the 3rd,
Oh, it's
so.
the
No,
third.
it's the
It's
fourth.
the third.
It's the 3rd?
It is the 3rd.
The annual meeting is on March 4th.
Okay, hold on.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right.
February 3rd is the hearing.
It's
March
Monday?
4th
is
Yes, it's
Good
Monday.
golly. Thanks for clarifying.
That's what I had too. I just changed
Yeah,
it when you
good-
said the
good
4th.
catch.
Yeah, I was thinking, oh, it's moved,
Is
and
that
I
what
missed
I
that.
Darlene's always
I
right.
answered you, Brian, and I think that's what I said. I think, oh yeah, we'll be set on the 4th, and then I answered you back and said, oh no, wait, it's the
The
3rd. So I
3rd,
got
yeah.
the 4th in my head. You're right. Monday, February 3rd, everybody. Monday the 3rd.
At what time?
Oh my God.
6:30.
6:30?
6:30. Boy, that would have been something, wouldn't it?
When's the Brookline deliberative session?
Monday the 3rd.
The 5th.
And then that's the second public hearing is on the 5th. Holy cow. Okay.
Wait, what?
Just send a
The
reminder.
5th is the deliberative session
Yes.
for Brookline.
Yes.
Okay, so then when is the second public hearing in Brookline? That's the 4th.
No, it's the 5th. It happens before the deliberative session.
The second co-op public
Okay.
hearing on the petition articles is right before the deliberative
Yes.
session. Good timing.
Okay,
Okay.
that makes
The
sense.
5th is
We-
going to be
Yes.
here or in Brookline?
No, in Brookline.
That's the Brookline one. The 3rd is here.
The 3rd is
Yeah,
here.
okay.
The 3rd
Yes.
is here.
Okay. Great.
So let me get this straight.
I'm glad we clarified that.
The 30th
Put the
meeting
lime
is
in the
gonna be at the
coconut.
high school.
Yes.
Yes.
The 3rd meeting is gonna be here.
Yes.
And then we'll worry about the March, a month from now.
Yeah,
Well,
let's
that's
not talk
always-
about that now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Alright.
Okay, great. Okay, I think we covered a lot of ground tonight. Does anyone have any general questions or anything at this point? I'll look to our process observer for some feedback.
It was a great meeting. I thought we had some very good input. It was very well attended, and discussion was robust and efficient.
Excellent. Seeing no other.
Including your own wife.
Did okay.
So at this point at 8:19 PM, I'll take a motion to adjourn
I'll take it.
by Raul,
Yes.
seconded
Seconded.
by
I'll second.
Yeah.
Brian. All those in favor?
Aye.
700. Thank you very much. We'll see
Thank
you
you.
Thank you.
next week.
Darlene,
Yeah.
much appreciated.